Do not underestimate the shabby hat. Underneath it lies an exceptional business acumen possessed by Bernard, a young black shoe shiner. He intentionally places his stall in front of the bank to attract wealthy white customers, and despite earning little money from shining shoes, he remains indifferent. To hear the financial secrets of white people while they wait, Bernard works slowly. After they leave, he records the information in a notebook. His lifelong dream is to become a banker, and his sole interest is in the valuable financial knowledge he gains. He has known this ambition since he was very young. Texas, 1939, a time and place of severe discrimination against black people. Despite his father's discouraging words, Bernard remains determined. 15 years later, he moves to Los Angeles with his wife Eunice and their children, having grown into an adult. In Los Angeles, the racial discrimination is less severe than in his hometown, and Bernard decides to start his business there. However, due to financial constraints, he and his family must live in a rundown utility room of a relative's home. Bernard assures his wife that they will move out soon. He starts working as a real estate agent, searching for homes for sale throughout the city. Through astute observation, he notes that the black community is overcrowded, while the white community has many vacant homes. Despite the financial strength and rental needs of the black community, there is no available market. Recognizing a business opportunity for real estate speculation and renting, Bernard identifies a dilapidated white-owned apartment near the black area. While others see the house's poor condition, Bernard sees the advantage of its location. Bernard proposes a deal to the owner of the half-rented apartment. He offers $30,000 upfront and another $5,000 after he rents out all the rooms. Though the owner admires Bernard's idea, he is hesitant about taking the risk. Bernard expresses his understanding and, before leaving, notices the owner's calendar, a gift from a local bank manager, giving him an idea. After bidding farewell to the owner, Bernard goes directly to the bank to find the manager who gifted the calendar. Unfortunately, the manager's secretary, who discriminates against black people, denies him an introduction. Undeterred, Bernard waits for several hours outside the bank, and when the manager emerges, he intercepts him immediately. Bernard appeals to the manager, saying, "I have a VIP customer who would benefit from the business I conduct. Can you approve a loan for me?" Unfortunately, the bank manager rejects his request without any consideration. Later that night, the owner calls Bernard to inquire, "Did you mention my name to apply for a loan?" Bernard apologizes since he has no other option. To his surprise, the owner does not blame him but rather admires his perseverance towards achieving his goals. Subsequently, the owner agrees to guarantee the loan, allowing Bernard to obtain his first ever loan from the bank, which he uses to purchase the property. As an old white lady returns home from shopping, she finds a black man at her door. With a sharp voice, she demands, "What are you doing?" The black man responds calmly, "I'm renovating the apartment building." Despite his answer, the old lady speaks with malice, saying, "Workers like you should be careful." Bernard replies, "Don't worry, this is my building, and I will certainly take good care of it." The old lady, rendered speechless, goes home angrily, and soon after, the police arrive. The police inform Bernard that an old lady called them and inquire whether he impersonated the owner and disputed her. Surprisingly, Bernard presents a copy of the real estate certificate. He had anticipated trouble and prepared in advance. The police discovered that the house indeed belongs to him and leave in a rage. Bernard returns to the apartment building that night, and the old lady at the door instructs him to leave since it is not renovation time. Bernard remains composed and clarifies, "I am not a renovation worker. I am now the owner." The old lady is stunned, and a few days later, she departs angrily, refusing to reside in the same building with black people. Upon the old lady's departure, Bernard leases her house to a black woman, as he anticipated a vast black tenant market. Consequently, the building fills up quickly, and Bernard makes the agreed follow-up payment to the previous owner. The former owner has a deep admiration for Bernard and proposes starting a business venture with him. Bernard selects a house and calculates the earnings, and the old owner negotiates the transaction, and they sign the contract in front. The white individuals are unaware that they are doing business with black individuals, and they share the profits. Bernard accepts the proposal without hesitation. The partnership between the two proceeds smoothly, resulting in a significant profit. Bernard promptly moves his family from an apartment to a mansion, providing them with a contented life. This exemplifies his intelligence. Rather than retaliating when someone discriminates against him, he avoids playing by their rules. Instead, he plays by his own rules, prioritizing rational economics and maximizing profits as his ultimate goals. Adversity can unexpectedly appear at any moment, and life is not always smooth. After working with Bernard, the former owner, who is old and fragile, dies unexpectedly a few years later. His wife inherits his equity in the company. Unfortunately, this woman has a severe prejudice against black individuals and refuses to collaborate with Bernard. Disdainfully, she offers to purchase Bernard's shares at an unreasonably low price, threatening to sue him if he refuses. During an era when whites and blacks are prone to litigation, it's clear who the judge would favor. Bernard refuses to tolerate such unfair treatment, so he decides to take legal action. However, he must locate someone to testify on his behalf and prove his cooperative relationship with the old owner. Although he thinks of the manager has already sided with the widow and avoids Bernard. Bernard is extremely disheartened and stands inside the bank, observing his surroundings. The well-organized bank building displays systematic discriminatory behavior everywhere. Simply because of his skin color, he is often ridiculed whenever he enters the bank. Bernard gradually formulates a daring plan after contemplating this situation. The building consists of 4 banks, each with closed doors for a black man. A brilliant idea sparks in Bernard's mind: I will purchase this building and see who dares to discriminate against me again. Bernard subsequently meets with Joe, another black real estate developer in Los Angeles, and explains his intentions. Initially, Joe believes that Bernard is irrational since the land price is excessively high, and no black person has ever purchased land in LA downtown. However, after conversing for a while, Joe realizes that Bernard is not a delusional individual, but a rational thinker. Bernard desires to purchase this building because, as long as he owns it, the bank within will cater to him. They cannot deny him a loan, and they will also provide him with information about real estate trends, allowing for a smoother real estate business. Joe is astounded by Bernard's idea, but after considering it, he believes it will be effective. Despite being exceedingly wealthy, Bernard still encounters discrimination from white individuals. If he can assert himself over white bankers on their land, he can earn more money. However, since they are still unable to directly negotiate transactions with white people, they require a white agent. In this regard, Bernard has a plan in mind: Matt, who has been assisting him with renovations. The individual is honest and highly ambitious but lacks experience. Consequently, Bernard and Joe embark on a comprehensive training program to educate Matt, covering golf, high-class etiquette, mathematical thinking, and real estate. Matt exceeds expectations and rapidly attains proficiency in golf. While golfing, he can estimate real estate valuations, akin to a young, promising entrepreneur. At a golf club, Matt encounters the owner of the bank building, an encounter that Joe arranged. The conversation progresses favorably, and Matt is granted the opportunity to purchase the building, with the remaining details to be negotiated. However, Matt is uncertain how to proceed. Do not worry, Bernard assists Matt in making all the necessary preparations prior to the negotiation. Initially, Bernard instructs Matt to determine the number of lights on in the building after dark, determine the building's vacancy rate, and estimate the building's value by analyzing the building's annual revenue and operating costs. Bernard prepares any relevant numbers and requests that Matt memorize them before meeting with the owner. Consequently, irrespective of how much the owner brags about his property, Matt is always one step ahead, providing the precise numbers, which astounds the owner. Even the accountant next to him is stunned. They all believe they have encountered a mathematical genius and cannot deceive him in any way. Eventually, Bernard procures the building initially valued at over $2.4 million for just $1.56 million. Subsequently, whenever Bernard enters or exits the building, every bank president greets him. The manager who previously made things challenging for him is astounded. With the support of the banking industry, Bernard and Joe's real estate endeavors rapidly expand. They single-handedly break Los Angeles' strict zoning laws concerning black and white segregation. Numerous young, promising black individuals relocate to white neighborhoods. Eventually, they even receive recognition from the vice president. Years later, in 1963, Bernard visits his father, Britton, in Texas with his family. Following dinner, Britton expresses pride in Bernard's accomplishments. The next day, Bernard and his son walk around town, and before they realize it, they arrive in front of the bank where Bernard once worked as a shoe shine boy. During that period, Texas was the most discriminatory place in America. They come across a young boy shining shoes, just like Bernard used to do when he was young. To Bernard's surprise, the boy will only shine the shoes of white individuals. This brief encounter moves Bernard and rekindles his sense of obligation to his community. He secretly decides that he must alter the status quo and assist the black community in his hometown in obtaining better housing. The following day, Bernard proposes to Joe that they should purchase Mainland Bank in Texas. Joe initially thinks it's a crazy idea due to the severe racism in the state. However, Bernard presents convincing arguments to justify the acquisition. Eventually, Joe agrees to support Bernard's plan. Matt is enlisted once more to act as their representative. They have a meeting with the bank owners, Robert Florence Sr. and Jr., to discuss the details of the transaction. Although Florence Jr. is skeptical, Sr. ultimately agrees to sell the bank to Matt and his associates. By acquiring Mainland Bank, Bernard is sparking a new wave of change in the community. He is committed to ensuring his fellow African Americans receive equitable access to money and mortgages, allowing them an opportunity for financial independence and housing freedom. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until Florence Jr. began inquiring into the bank's loan approvals. After tracking Matt, he encountered Bernard and Joe, confronting them about their decisions and menacingly advising that the U.S. Treasury Department would arrive in 1 month for a full inspection of operations at the bank. As Florence Jr. departs, the men strategize on their next venture. At this point, Matt proposes that they purchase another bank and shift all of Mainland's problematic loans to that particular institution. Bernard and Matt conversed about the acquisition of the Bank of Marlin Moore, where Bernard argued that monitoring its operations would be a struggle. In response, Matt proposed he manage the new bank, albeit hesitant at first. Bernard reluctantly conceded to let Eunice monitor him, in the end yielding a successful takeover by Matt as originally intended. The day after, Matt contacts a lawyer and they start signing loan contracts immediately. Later, Matt receives a call from Florence Jr. about clients who want to withdraw all their money from Mainland. The situation worsens as a federal bank examiner arrives in Marlin. To assist Matt, Bernard disguises himself as a janitor and sneaks into the meeting. However, it doesn't change the outcome as the examiner uncovers a significant issue with some of the loans. Bernard cannot believe that the questionable loans were approved. Later, they discover that Florence Jr. was behind it all. Due to Matt's haste in running the bank, he neglected protocols and used Florence's recommended lawyer, allowing Florence to slip in the problematic loans. Later on, Bernard and Joe advised Matt to give up his pursuit of the Bank of Marlin. Not wanting to surrender without a fight, he took action without informing them, something that was discovered by Joe the next day as they rushed into Mainland Bank with Bernard in tow. A heated debate ensued between the three partners while Florence looked unapprovingly from beside them. Bernard instructed Matt to fetch their books, but it was too late. Before they had the chance, federal bank examiners swept in and revoked Mainland Bank's license to function. As they were exiting the premises, FBI agents arrested both Bernard and Joe. Although he made a valiant effort to stay put, his efforts proved futile against overwhelming odds. Months later, Bernard and Joe reunite with their lawyer, who gives them the disheartening news that their case has become entangled in the racial politics of this nation. With nothing else to do, Matt talks with Senator McClellan about testifying against his friends if it means freedom for him. That night he is left alone to ponder his future endeavors as he dials a number into his phone. The following day, Matt testifies according to McClellan's proposal. Subsequently that same afternoon, Bernard meets with McClellan and receives a proposition. If he chooses immunity in exchange for confirming Matt's testimonies, then his jail time is absolved, or else he has the option of saying whatever pleases him while facing imprisonment. Eventually, Bernard musters the courage to speak his truth about racism and its consequences in the nation. Unfortunately, both he and Joe suffer heavy financial losses after their testimony before becoming incarcerated for their part in what transpired. Meanwhile, Florence Jr. acquires Mainland Bank at a greatly reduced cost compared to what had been initially paid by Bernard and Joe previously. Surprisingly, Matt Steiner was never charged with any criminal act. Eventually, Bernard and Joe were released from prison in the following years. Eunice found it peculiar that they appeared joyous despite having lost all their possessions. Unbeknownst to her, this wasn't accurate. Joe revealed an astonishing secret: they owned land side by side on a secluded island in the Bahamas. Eunice is astonished and inquires about how that event transpired. It's revealed that the individual Matt phoned the evening prior to his testimony was Bernard. He shared with Bernard concerning the senator's agreement and apologizing to him. In exchange, Bernard asked for a favor before the government could confiscate their resources. The movie concludes after it is disclosed that Joe and Bernard's housing sites were vital in eliminating residential segregation in Los Angeles, while they still own two mansions side by side located in Bahamas, an incredible feat.